Yeah. Yeah, we've been working on acquiring these easements since February of 2011.
Not cases. As I said before, we were trying to design as they were building. So some of these easements have been recently added to the list. We have finalized the easements we need now. Some of them came about to us in the last couple of months. So we are trying to work with those customers very closely on these easements. In all cases, it's using a small square in the front yard, but some of these are renewed to the customers.
How many of the ones that we're going to be voting on here are new ones, as in, when you say new, how new,
Okay.
in terms of us working with? We've known since February, or you say there may be some redesign, but
Yes.
give me an idea of what.
All have been contacted. And some of them in the last 2 or 3 months. Most have been in the last 8 to 12 months have been contacted and notified of the pending project. None of this is unknown to the customer as far as the impact to the customer.
One thing I would stress, typically when we do come asking for condemnation authority, it is not the absolute end step. Once the board gives that authority to us, we still continue negotiations. It will oftentimes extend for weeks, or in some cases months. In this particular project, we don't have quite that much latitude in terms of time frame, but we will continue to negotiate with those customers in an effort to reach resolution short of exercising the condemnation authority that might have been granted to us.
And I was going to say that, and maybe there's some other members who weren't here. I know there were some other members who weren't here when we adopted sort of this process. I can't remember if it was for Page 10, where this helps speed the process up. Very seldom have we ever had to actually do the condemnation. You know, all we're doing is giving them authority so they don't get bogged down if they can't do so. So it was a process to keep them working and speed up the process in that regard, and it's working pretty well. So I think you had much problem with it.
The process really works. We talk to the customer, initially make an offer. If that doesn't work out, we didn't order appraisals by a third party. So all could be on the same page, look at the same data. That usually speeds it up a lot. Worst case, it goes to condemnation, but very, very rarely does that happen. I'd say very.
I would imagine the state has to do some right-of-way acquisition as well as easements. Are they, in some cases, the same property owner?
In all cases, it's the
Do
same.
you know the status of their state? Also in the same, middle of the same process?
Yeah, most of theirs, they have been much more aggressive. If that's a term I want to use, as far as they have been more pushing to get that project done per se. I think they've gone to their condemnation in the domain much quicker than we would like and prefer. And that's probably caused some of the angst that we've had with some of ours. But they are moving along, moving dirt, and if you look at those front yards, they've been, there's not much left. And so we're trying to avoid those and work around those customers that we can, but in some cases we have to be in the same spot. But they have been acquiring as we've been acquiring also.
Is it mostly money?
In most cases, actually, no, they just don't. The project itself costs a lot of heartburn.
They just don't want
They don't want to, like the fact that they're losing half the front yard, and we're trying to back our facilities up in front of the yard as much as we can. We have to have some overhang or an anchor to make our pole stand, and so it's not so much money; it's just the whole project being in the front yard doesn't make.
There's a list of property owners in your packet if anybody's interested. Okay, we have 3 motions and we have to deal with them separately. You may have any more questions, Mr. Bowles?
I just want to, you said that everyone's been contacted and we're still in negotiations as far as we're just negotiating we're negotiating on price, is that what we are?
That's what we're negotiating.
Oh, okay.
That's what we're looking at, yes.
So we're not trying to negotiate on saying, we can rearrange this pole so it doesn't affect your yard too much or whatever?
We try
We do that too.
We try that. That's our first actually. Just try to move around, and if we can meet their needs or their wants, yes.
So we're relocating the pole about how much further into their yard possibly?
In most most cases, it's still the road right away. It's the anchor that holds the pole up. It's going back, so it's 5-10 feet. I mean, it's very little. The pole, I say all but 2 poles in the whole project are on road right away. I mean, we really tried to keep it in the corridor we could. It's just running back up 10-12 feet from where it's today, and get it out of the roadway.
Are any of these like high power electrical lines that are near houses?
No, in all cases, it's up against the road. I mean, there are the high voltage lines on the project. They're still out on the road, along the road. They're closer than they used to be because the road's widened, but nowhere I would consider close to the
You
house.
can't hear the houses would crackle.
You probably can. I hope not.
All right.
And one more question, looking at these, are most of them residential, or what percentage of them?
Actually, about I'd say just off the top of my head, 2/3 are commercial, and I said most of the restaurants, or there's a mini storage, there's the Kroger's on Western Avenue, they're in their front yard. So most of them are actually commercial. Most of Western Avenue is turned commercial, seems like. So probably 2/3 in the market, storage or grocery store, stuff like that.
Other questions? Yeah, we need a motion and second for resolution 1261, which deals with the electric conservation.
Move to accept resolution 1261.
Motion and second. Any public comment or input? We'll have a roll call vote then for 1261.
Mr. Anderson. Mr. Cannell. Mr. Rising. Mr. Robinson. Mr. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Resolution 1261 is passed.
1262 deals with the water condemnation for this project. Questions or comments? Public, okay.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. We'll need a roll call vote.
Mr. Anderson. Mr. Cannell. Mr. Rising. Mr. Robinson. Mr. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Aye.
Mr. Williams. Resolution 1262 is passed.
Thank you. 1263, wastewater condemnation easement. We need a motion and second.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and second. Any comment? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Anderson. Mr. Cannell. Mr. Rising. Mr. Robinson. Mr. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams. Resolution 1263 is passed.
Thank you very much. Moving right along, resolution 1264, requesting board ratification of President CEO's awards to the lowest bidders for revenue refunding bond series of electric, gas, water, and wastewater divisions.
Commissioners, you'll recall in November you approved a resolution to authorize us to go to the bond market to try to get better rates given the good credit that currently exists. We did that yesterday, and we have some great news to report. Mark Walker will report that, and then you will have a resolution to ratify the award of those bids.
Commissioners, as Ms. Roach stated, several months ago, the board did authorize the sale of revenue refunding bonds for all 4 divisions to refund debt that had been issued back in 2004, and to do so at lower interest rates, therefore effectuating a debt service savings. When we talked to you back in November, our projected savings at that time was $7 million on a net present value basis. So time goes on, and yesterday was the actual sale, or we accepted bids yesterday morning on all 4 series of bonds. We did have a lot of interest in the bonds. We had no fewer than 6 underwriters bid on each series. We had one that had 7. That was the gas bonds. The electric, water, and wastewater each had 6 bidders on that. But the results were, I guess, fantastic. We were very pleasantly surprised. On an aggregate basis, debt service savings over the life of the bonds of over $15 million, $15.4 million. And on a net present value basis, $12.3 million. So $5.3 million more than we had forecast back in November. So we were very thrilled with those results. And as a percentage of the bonds being refunded, that's 13% in total, which I don't think we've ever seen a percentage that high in all my years of being dealing with bonds, which is about 15 years. We've never had a refunding that I recall that's this successful. So very pleased with the savings, and in accordance with the debt management policy, I'll go through every series of those bonds here in just a moment. I just want to provide a high-level overview of all the results. Another key point to communicate to the board is that we sold $88.9 million in bonds, roughly $89 million. And you can see down at the bottom, though, that our intent was to refund almost $95 million. The reason that we only sold 89 is because of the way that the underwriters bid the bonds. They bid relatively high premiums on the bonds, basically in excess of the par value that we had out there. At $7.8 million in total, that's about 8.8% of the bonds that were sold. And that is a very high percentage. If you look back to the water bonds that we sold back in November of 2011, I went back and saw what the premium was for the 25 million, and it was $280,000, or about 1% of that issue. So the marketplace has changed, and why it's changed is that interest rates continue to be at historical lows. And what the bondholders, in particular the institutional holders, are wanting to have higher coupon rates, or good coupon rates, and they're willing to pay a premium for that. And that simply translates up to the chain as far as to the underwriter when they're buying our bonds. They're going to bid in the same fashion, basically. So that is the reason that the premium is what it is. So when you look at the proceeds of the $89 million and the premiums of $7.8 million, those together go to refund the $94.6 million in outstanding debt, the bonds for all systems that were sold back in 2004, and also to pay the underwriter's fee, the discount, any accrued interest on the bonds to be refunded, and also the cost of issuance. And basically it comes out to be a zero gain. You add those two together and they cover all of those two bottom bullets. Any questions on that? So really good news. To look at each refunding issue by itself, I basically updated this chart from what I showed in November to put the actual results on the NPV savings and the percentage of savings. But you can see, again, that for each system, in total, $94.6 million. And here you see the NPV savings by system, electric being the highest, obviously with the highest amount of bonds being refunded at $5.4 million, 3.8 for gas, $1 million for water, 2.1 for wastewater, total of 12.3 on an NPV, or 13% of the total refunded bonds. You also see the bond ratings, and I believe we previously communicated to the board. We had our conference calls, our discussions with the rating agencies, all of that went well, and they affirmed all of our current high ratings for this bond issue as well, both Moody's and Standard & Poor's. With respect to the electric bonds, again, we received 6 bids. The low-cost bid was from Prager and Company, and that came in at a true interest cost of just under 2.72%. As a point of comparison, the bonds that these are refunding have an average coupon of 4.74%. So 200 basis point savings, 2% reduction when it's all said and done. As far as the more details on the electric refunding bonds, again, if you do the math and you compare the proceeds and the premium we received on the electric, it goes to pay off the $39.8 million in 2004 bonds, and then cover the underwriter's discount, the issuance cost, et cetera, et cetera. And you can see how the maturity schedule is for the new bonds. And in the light color portion of the bar, we reflect what it would have been if we hadn't done the refunding, basically what the amount of the savings is by year over that period of time. The refunding doesn't result in any extension of maturities. You might say, well, that maturity schedule looks a little odd there. Basically, we're replicating what was already out there. Our goal and what we committed to the comptroller's office was not to increase the weighted average life of the bonds. Yes, sir.
This is probably back to your first screen or so, but so we have a much cheaper interest rate by comparison. tell me again, the premium is people willing, or the underwriters willing to pay more.
Right. If you
Save us money because of the quality of our.
Well, think in terms of a bondholder. Say I'm a large insurance company or a pension fund. I like to have municipal bonds in my portfolio. I would prefer to have a municipal bond that pays 3% as opposed to 2%. 3% over the long term as opposed to 2% over the long term. In exchange for that, I'm willing to pay you X hundreds of thousands of dollars in money up front for you to give me that higher rate. That's what they're communicating to their broker. And then that broker goes, as it goes up the chain, to the large investment banking house who they're going to buy the bonds from them. That's the way it's going to be. All of these deals are usually lined up. The underwriter knows who they're going to give the bonds, sell the bonds to, and they know who they're going to sell the bonds to. So there's a lot of certainty out there with respect to the marketplace. But that's basically what you're saying is, in exchange for a higher rate, I'm going to give you cash up front.
And I know our bonds are rated good, we're highly thought of, but is the market that positive? You know, if whoever TVA or LCUB was issuing bonds this week, would they have the same premium, if you will?
Yes. Yes, premiums, this high level of premium was not unique to KUB for any reason. That's a good question. You're seeing all other deals at this point in time. That's the way underwriters are bidding. For example, the state of Tennessee did a large bond issue last week, and they received a premium in excess of 20%. So that is just the way the marketplace is working now, because the bondholders are wanting to get a higher coupon rate and are willing to pay for it. And that's really what it's all about. Now, as far as the economics of it, if in another time, I don't think it changes. Just because the value of the premiums are high, it doesn't really change this right here. All it is, if in another time, the premium would have been lower, but the interest rates on our debt would have been lower as well. So the average coupon, when all the dust settles, is going to be not reduced as much, but in turn, we get all the premium to cash up front. And all that factors into that true interest cost calculation. Does that make sense?